And ladies and gentlemen, we are live. This is the Voice of Reason podcast. It's a beautiful Monday evening here on December 13th. My name is Sean Phillips. As always, I am joined alongside my co-host, Mr. Andy Van Beber. And tonight we have a very, very special guest that I can't wait to introduce to you guys. The one, the only, the great, the powerful Mr. Delno Elbie. Gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
Good.
Great. I want to point out that since we started this podcast back in February, of course, Sean approached me with the idea last October of 2020. We started our first podcast. We're actually getting close to, we're about 10 episodes away from doing a full season. And this weekend was the first time that I saw Sean in person since we started the podcast. So, hence our new, if you haven't checked out our profile pic, our new profile pic is up there on the old Facebook. So, but that was Chris. We had a great time this weekend, Sean. It was awesome hanging with you and the girlfriend and seeing our old buddy Travis again. And Travis said he's getting close to being back where he can be back on with us again some, and really excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you guys that listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all the other good places where we do get listeners from, which one of the coolest things about this experience is that we have listeners from all kinds of different platforms, some pretty different countries too. V, what was it like? We've got one in Russia.
Mongolia was.
Yeah.
When I saw that come up on our so we get our year-end Spotify report as everybody, and it popped up. We had Finland. We actually had like 2 or 3 listeners in Germany. So to our German friends who follow us, thank you. But yeah, last week we had somebody who had tuned in to us from Mongolia. So
nice.
That was part of the software that we use distributes it out to more than just who all Sean mentions. It's, it goes out to just about any podcasting format you can think of. And apparently we have a lot of repeat listeners from other countries, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. And so today we've got a very special episode. I want to introduce Delno. For those of you guys that don't know whom Delno is, I had the pleasure of meeting you. It's been, how many months back did we meet? When did we meet up in old Manhattan?
I think it was in June.
Yeah. So it's been a little while. Delno is a professional actor and an individual that I met while shooting a fan film that we did in Manhattan, Kansas. It was actually like one of the first things that I had done on a set behind a camera. It was a super surreal experience for me, and getting to meet Delno, who is a fountain of knowledge, who shared a ton of information with me. And then it turned out to be not just a super badass Bruce Wayne, but just a pretty badass dad and guy in general in real life. And so first and foremost, Delno, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll kind of ask you a couple questions about some work you've done in the past and what you're doing now. And just kind of give us the rundown on where you're from and what you do.
Well, I am from Wichita, Kansas, and born and raised here. As you said, I'm a dad and husband and actor, and I teach ballroom and Latin dancing when I'm not acting. I'm a writer and acting coach. So I keep myself busy as much as possible. But I've been an actor for almost 30 years.
Wow.
So I started in theater here and kind of built a resume, and then did my first film in 1999. Sarah Plain and Tall, Winter's End, when it shot here at Cowtown. So which was it's pretty awesome because I got to be on set with Christopher Walken and Jack Palance and Glenn Close all day,
Wow.
and it's like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Those are the big names
you know,
right there. Wow.
it was awesome. I mean, I was of course a big fan of Christopher Walken and Jack. And Jack Palance, of course, the epitome of the bad guy from westerns like Shane and stuff like that. So, and to see basically a legend in person was pretty awesome. So, and that just kind of stoked the fires to really get going and try to audition for as much as I could. So, and I ended up splitting my time between Los Angeles and Kansas here for several years until my son was born in 2004 with Down syndrome. So, so that kind of slowed the career down, but hey, picked up the dad career. So,
There you go.
Trust me, we both 100% understand how the dad career can kind of slow down the rest of the things that you got going, but it's definitely the best kind of trade-off that anybody could ever imagine. I love being a dad. I know Andy loves being a dad so much he did it twice. So it's so let me ask you, with you starting in Wichita in doing theater, what kind of going out to LA, what was that experience like the first time you went out there? And then what were some of the good things you liked about LA back then, and some things you didn't like about LA?
well, I mean, I was familiar with LA because I'd lived in California in the 80s. So I lived
Oh, okay.
in California from like 86 to 89. Worked at Disneyland for 2 years. So, and I was, at that time, I was like 16, 17. So, and, being a teenage male, we couldn't afford for me to have car insurance, so I didn't get to drive. So I had to rely on my mother to drive me everywhere, or someone to come and pick me up. So I kind of looked at some theaters out there, maybe trying to get involved, but it just really didn't work out. So we moved back here in '89, and that's when I started teaching, or got into teaching dance at Fred Astaire Dance Studio here in Wichita, and then a couple of years later I got into theater, and then when I got ready to go out to LA, I was a little bit older, a little bit braver, I guess. And so, and I had cousins, I had family out there and stuff like that. But, the first time I went out there, it was in 2001, and that was for a showcase. So that was an interesting, experience, to say the least. And then went back out in 2002, stayed with some friends, slept in the corner of they had a a 1-bedroom apartment, or 2-bedroom apartment in Burbank. And I slept in the corner on a sleeping bag.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I, went out and I got registered with Central Casting and tried to get, get on set as doing background and stuff like that, because I knew I kind of approached it like I did when I started theater, because when I started theater, I didn't have a resume, and I knew that I was going to have to build, I was going to have to get the experience and build that resume up, and I approached it the same way. I was get on set, and, you never know who you're going to meet, what kind of connections you're going to make. So, got to be in some cool stuff. Was in Intolerable Cruelty with George Clooney, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And A Man Apart with Vin Diesel. So that was, I got to work on the back lot of Universal Studios for 2 days. when, the summer before I'd been there as a guest, so I got to watch the tram go by, and the summer before I was on the tram. So it was kind of an interesting perspective. So,
Yeah,
and
the
then in
second time
2000,
around, you were like, "Look at those nerds going by." It was, yeah,
I was like, yeah, well, no, it's just like, wow, I was there. I was like, that was awesome. So, um, and then I went back in 2003, and that's, got some more stuff and worked at Arthur Murray Dance Studio in Sherman Oaks, and
Oh, wow.
did Walt Disney's The Haunted Mansion because I was working at Arthur Murray Dance Studio. I mean, the interesting thing is you never know when opportunity's gonna come, because if I hadn't been working at the dance studio, I wouldn't have known about this audition, and I would have never got the opportunity. So, because it was an interesting story about that, is that apparently a couple months before we auditioned, Disney had hired a bunch of actors who said that they could dance. Well, doing Viennese waltz is not an easy thing to do. And so they found that out. So they thought, well, maybe we should find dancers who are also actors. So they started calling around the dance studios all over. And my dance partner at the studio picked up the phone and talked to him, and she said, you want to go to this audition with me? I said, sure. She said, because it's an immediate Taft-Hartley into Screen Actors Guild, which is unheard of.
Right.
And so it's just like, oh, yeah, I'm there. So we went and auditioned, and honestly, it's the first job that I've had that I was hired on the spot after the audition.
Oh, wow.
I mean, said, we want you guys to come on board and everything. So I was under a principal dancer's contract. So, I get residuals. So
That's
anybody
really
that wants
cool.
to go watch The Haunted Mansion on Disney Plus, by all means.
Oh man, we're there. We'll sponsor that in heart.
I will just
we'll plug
stream
that.
it when I leave. That's what I'll let my dog watch whenever we leave the house.
There you go. I like that. The funny thing is that people say, hey, will I be able to see it? And it's like, well, I'm in costume from head to toe. So unless I'm sitting next to you, you probably won't going, hey, there I am. You probably won't see me. But
what's funny is
it's interesting.
I saw the cast photo that you took that you had sent that had kind of showed it, and I was like, man, that's the coolest part, because that movie. What's funny is that movie, and I don't remember why particularly, but when I was younger, it actually scared the crap out of me. And then now that I'm older and I have my 2-year-old watch it, she actually really enjoys it. So I always just found it funny because it scared me like as a 6-7-year-old, and yet she just finds it to be this awesome movie that she loves. And I think it's just because Eddie Murphy has such like crazy expressions and facial features that she loves animation. So
you were 6 or 7 years old.
Oh, here it comes.
Something.
You said that, Sean.
Man,
you said that.
You just made me feel older than old, man.
Well, I have to ask, though.
I
have to ask them, though, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking? How old are you?
52.
You're 50.
And he looked like
look at that.
He could be 28. It's ridiculous.
Oh, you look amazing. I thought I was the old guy in the room. Man, that's great. You look awesome.
John, I think I was older than you when I made the movie.
Yeah, probably. How old were you when you were in it?
2003. I was 34.
Yeah.
And you said, where did you get your? So you say and Sean gave me all your stuff, and I did some research today, and I was looking at some of your work and everything. Where did you get your training? Where did you train at?
Well, I trained by doing.
Right.
I mean, I didn't go to.
I was going to say what? So
college and
that's the thing I was going to ask you. So at what point do you say, okay, I mean, obviously it takes a lot of faith and something to just say, I'm going to jump right straight into this and just go with it. So, I mean, At what point, where were you at when you decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is going to be me.
Well, I mean, I'd always wanted. I mean, this is what I had always wanted to do. You know, it's just like with anything, it's trying to find the resources and the the least painful way to do it,
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, like with anything, it costs money,
Right.
it requires sacrifice, and it, you know, so it's, once you kind of figure out what it's going to cost and what kind of sacrifices it's going to require, at least, you know, at first, then, you know, you can start kind of going, okay, well, I need to do X, Y, Z to get going on where I want to go. So, you know, I started out, you know, it was really after when I got hired on for the Sarah and Tall at Cowtown and stuff like that. Is when I really said, you know, I need I need to get out to California, and I need to really try to get into some things. And, you know, when you're young and ambitious and everything like that, you know, you think you're going to go out there and, you know, get discovered and be a star and all this fun stuff. And then when you realize that the likelihood of that is slim and none, then, you know, you start deciding, oh, well, then I'm just going to be the best actor that I can be.
Right.
And you kind of find your niche, and you kind of find what you're good at, and start building on that. So.
So, and I was also looking at some of your television stuff too, and you've got quite an impressive resume there. I mean, one that stuck out to me there was ER, which was one of my shows. And again, I'm not meaning to age you or anything, but that was one of my favorite shows in college. And we were the nerds in college who actually had the ER watching night and everything. I thought that was pretty impressive too. So, what? I guess the next thing, and I'll let Sean get back to you. What do you feel is probably the most challenging part of your career? When you look at your whole body of work, where you're at, where you've been, and where you are now, what has been your most challenging aspect of your career?
Location, location, location.
Yep.
You know, it's incredibly difficult to do this, being based in Wichita, Kansas, but it's where my family's at. You know, my wife is a pre-K teacher. You know, my kids go to school here, and so it's it's it makes it harder, but it's not impossible.
Mhm.
And so, you know, and I've been blessed enough and fortunate enough to have representation in Los Angeles, to have representation in Atlanta, Mexico, and Oklahoma. Um, and self-tapes. I mean, COVID was kind of a blessing in disguise, really, because, you know, it opened up self-tapes a lot more than what it would have been. And that has helped me a lot because I have a little studio in my home, and, you know, I self-tape auditions all the time. Last week I had to do a 9-page audition, a self-tape audition for a show, and I got it Tuesday morning, and it had to be in by Friday morning. So, which seems like a long time, but when my reader, which is my wife, is only available on a certain night, then kind of speeds the process up. So.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah, that's actually the same boat that I'm in. I sent in my headshots to a couple of different jobs and got an EcoCast back. So now I have to send in my self tapes, and there's a super small margin of window, and Tony will be my voice on the other end. So I definitely, Delno, I owe you a huge thanks, just because you were the one that, you know, taught me all about Actors Access and doing those self tapes and getting those out there, and the amount of like feedback that I've actually gotten just from doing that alone, and then also looking to work pretty regularly next year on things like voices.com and stuff like that has just been huge. And hopefully 2022 will, be filled with a couple of different projects here and there for me as well. So I wanted to ask you, is there anything particularly right now that you're working on, or anything that you can talk about that you're working on in the next couple of weeks, months, anything lined up that you're kind of able to discuss that you're excited about?
Well, I mean, I shot a movie called The Battle of Bushy Run in Georgia at the end of October. I'm pretty sure that's going to be coming out sometime next year. I just don't know when. And it's about it's at the end of Pontiac's War in 1763, where the British were fighting the various native tribes, and I got to play the chief of the Ojibwe, which was an awesome honor. And that was a lot of fun. I mean, the one thing about acting nowadays is a lot of it's, and it's kind of irritating in a way, is this local hire thing, because they want you to be local, so they don't have to pay
Travel
expenses
expenses,
or at least agree to work local, which I have no problem with. So if you want to, if I'm blessed enough to be cast in something like that, then I have absolutely no problem being a local hire, because it's the payoff is so much greater. And getting to go and be on the set, experience that is just, you can't really put a price tag on it. So it was fun because I have my own trailer, which is kind of cool.
Wow. There you go.
And that's the first time I've had my own trailer. So that was kind of like awesome. So, and then next year I'll be playing I'll be shooting a film in Texas, called The Contested Plains, where again I'll be playing a half Native American, half French.
Wow.
He was a Frenchman who was an interpreter. His name's Edward Guerrier. He was an actual real person.
Wow.
So that's going to be, looking forward to that. Hopefully some of these auditions a punch through, so we'll see.
Yeah, no kidding. So I know that, so how far, real quick, how far is Wichita from Oklahoma City?
About 2.5, 3 hours. Just depends. I'm actually just north of Wichita, so.
Oh, okay, cool. So you've got, okay. So with Oklahoma recently passing a whole bunch of legislation to really kind of set the tone for the next couple of years for films being shot in Oklahoma City. It's a huge arts town, and so I know that it's going to kind of become a bit of a hub, much like you had mentioned to me, and I actually talk about this quite a lot. You were the first one that had let me know about Netflix's mega studio in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that they had built. So are those kind of hubs that you're looking to stay pretty active in? And have you gotten any auditions or done anything in either of those towns yet? Or is that just kind of stuff you're looking to do in the next couple of months?
Well, no, I mean, I've got, I've had a lot of self-tape auditions, both for projects in New Mexico, and then for projects in New York and Georgia and so forth. So, if fortunately I'm not, Albuquerque's like 9.5 hours away from where I'm at. So not, to drive to Georgia, it was like a 15-hour drive each way. So, 9 hours is not that big a deal. And it's easier to drive, than to fly, because if you fly, you have to rent a car. So, it's just easier to drive, and I really don't. I'm not crazy about planes. So.
Yeah, right.
Right.
I'm one of those actors. So.
Gosh, man. Well, I get it. Okay, so I saw also too, and your son got to do a scene with you in one of the movies that you did. How was that experience for both of you?
It was so much fun, and I mean the reason that I did the film was so that he could be a part of it, and it's for I'd known the director and writer for 20 plus years, and so it's kind of like he's going to let both of us be in it, and of course I was going to have to be on set anyhow, for my son to be in it. So it's just like, what an experience. It's a once in a lifetime thing. Well, hopefully not once in a lifetime thing, but you never know. So it was fun, and I wasn't sure whether he'd be able to do it, because even though he's a teenager, I mean, he's getting ready to graduate next year, he's still mentally at about a 7 or 8 year old level on most things, not everything, but most things. And I was really quite proud of him. I mean, he just walked on set and had confidence. Like, he didn't have any fear. That's the interesting thing. He just did a play a school play in November, the Descendants.
Okay.
And
Nice. Yeah.
He was the first time a kid with Down syndrome had been allowed to be in the school play.
Wow.
And so and the funny thing is that he didn't get the steps to the choreography correct like 90% of the time, but he went out on stage. When he went out on stage, he owned the stage. There was no fear. There was no, oh, I'm going to mess up. He just went out there and had the time of his life. And so, it was kind of an example, not only for as an actor and as a father, but for the other kids that were on, that were on that stage. Like, you just got to go for it.
That was definitely probably a
Have
proud
fun.
dad moment, right?
It was, and he did fantastic. And the funniest thing is the bows, because he loves to bow. So he ran out into the middle of to the front and middle of the stage and just was bowing away like he was the star of the show, and he was a part of the chorus, of the ensemble, but he wasn't the star. But you would have known it. And
That's awesome.
And all the kids in the play and the director they let him do it because they thought it was great.
That's awesome.
And so props to them for doing that.
Yeah, no, and I will go back after this, after we do this episode, and I'll find the clip that you shared so I can share it with our followers on Facebook. We've got a pretty decent following, just so they can actually see him in action and see you in a snippet of action. And I'll be sure to also go through, because you've got some stuff that's on Tubi and that we can find online, for sure. So I definitely want to get those things out for our viewers and listeners to be able to check out as well and kind of see some of your work. One thing that I wanted to get your 2 cents about, just because I know you've done a lot of Westerns, kind of seems to be one of the things that I've seen you do kind of more recently anyways. I'm sure I'm sure you've seen plenty of the Alec Baldwin situation with his film Rust and everything that had kind of transpired from that. I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on films that you've worked at where there were either actual weapons on set or prop weapons on set. I wanted to get your thoughts on, what you make of the situation, what might have been able, what could have helped prevent that situation, and what do you think changes in the industry, especially if you're working more independent films or maybe non-union films or smaller budget films. What kind of changes are you going to see on sets like that versus big Hollywood sets where putting in a bunch of you know fake weapons and have all thousands or millions of dollars worth of fake props can be a thing, but not so much a thing to get the real effect on smaller budget movies.
Well, I mean, I think that, I mean, obviously, the loss of life is number one. That's a tragedy that should have never happened.
Mm-hmm.
And without being there, I can only give an opinion. So, for what it's worth, but obviously, I think that there was a breakdown of protocol somewhere along the line. Because when you're on a set and you're dealing with any type of weapon, it doesn't matter whether it's a firearm or whether it's with a knife or a sword or whatever. Because yes, when you're doing choreography with a knife, when you're doing it far away or whatever, you might have some of the less sharp, weapons, because usually there's more than one weapon that is the same style or looks the same. One's blunted, one might be used for, one might actually be a real weapon that's used for a close-up or something like that, and then they change, the way they cut it, put it together. I mean, you never know. But you still have to have that level of safety. You still have to have someone on set that is in charge of that and only that.
Mm-hmm.
From what I was, saw in the interviews and stuff like that she was not only the armorer, but she was also doing props. And it's just like she should have never been doing props.
Mm.
Her one job was to be the armorer. That's it. That's all she should have done. And for this last movie that I did in Georgia, I had to to dry fire a flintlock, gun because of 1763. And so the armorer handed it to me like it was a loaded weapon, barrel down. And I handed it back to him like it was a loaded weapon. And I handed it to. The thing is that you hand it to the person that hands it to you. You don't hand it to somebody else or anything like that. So there's no breakdown in that protocol. So, and I've used a number of weapons in various films, and I mean I like to check, to make sure that it's, even though I might have been shown that it's empty, but I like to double check it just to make sure. So it's just, in my opinion, it was a breakdown. It was just a breakdown of set protocol. Protocols are there for a reason. If they're followed like they should be followed, things like what happened won't happen.
So do you think though, when the interview came out with George Stephanopoulos last week, he was, I think that he was trying to pass some of the, and I respect what you said there. You hand it, as someone who's hunted, and I don't know your background, but somebody who's hunted all his life. I mean, you always like you said, treating a gun like it's loaded. You point it away, but when you look at what Alec Baldwin, what he says here is he's like, he basically threw everybody underneath the bus except for himself. Do you I mean, what level of responsibility do you as an actor have when and you've kind of already said this, but what kind of level of responsibility do you have as an actor to, in that situation?
Well, I mean, I think that, I mean, there's my answer, then there's the technical
Right.
aspects of it. As an actor, my only job is to act. My job isn't to be the armorer. My job isn't to be the AD. My job isn't to make sure that weapons are loaded or not loaded or anything like that. My job is to play a character. And so I am expecting everybody else in that chain of command to be doing their job. And somewhere along the line, someone didn't do their job. So, me personally, I like to double check and make sure, but that's just me as an actor. So, I think, honestly, a set is controlled chaos, and it's so many times you're running against the clock. Either you're running against the clock because, a setup took longer and it's going to be now, 8 hours turns into 12 hours on set. People are tired, actors on and crew, because the actors have the easy job. They come in, they do their thing, and they get to leave before anybody else does. The crew they've got to still clean up everything and get everything prepped for the next day. So, if you're working 12 hours and then you have 2 hours of cleanup and prep time and then go home, something's going to happen. So, but, there's a lot of blame going along. And it's true when Alec was saying, that the DP was having him lower the gun and put the gun this way. Same thing with mine. I had to pull my gun out and hold it, okay, hold it higher. No, just a little bit lower. Because they were looking for a certain frame that they were wanting to get. And so I would practice that, to make sure I hit the spot, because there's no marker that I can hit in thin air.
Right.
So I got to just practice getting it to the same spot, hopefully every single time. And it sounds to me like that's what he was doing. And, he cocked the gun. He didn't cock it all the way. And unfortunately, that was enough to fire fire a live round, which there should have never been a live round in that gun on set at all whatsoever.
And I think that that's something else that I, as somebody who knows nothing about we look at the we look at the finalized project, but I really do appreciate you giving that aspect of it, because there are obviously so many different layers and levels to this that, like you said, she had one job to do and she was given too many jobs to do. One too many was one enough. Do you, I mean, so basically, as you see it, then it's just basically just a breakdown of communication, a breakdown of assignments and everything else in between.
Yeah, I mean, that's without having, being privy to any other information outside of what I and everybody else has seen. It's just it looks to me like it was a breakdown, just a breakdown of protocol. When the thing is, I mean, and this is in life as well as in movies. I mean, when you're dealing with any type of weapon whatsoever, when there's just, it takes one person getting lazy or getting complacent with a weapon that can, spell tragedy.
So,
That's when lives are lost.
so you mentioned SAG earlier. Do do the actors any kind of union or anything like that? Do they put? I mean, is there any governing force as to how many hours you can put onto a set? Is there any oversight as to keep those kind of things from happening? I mean, is there any oversight of any kind over the industry that can limit and say, okay, you guys have been on for 12 hours. We need to cap it off just for, I mean, or is that just not occur in your industry?
Well, I think it's getting better. I mean, you mentioned PR earlier. I mean, when I did that, I mean, we were on set for 16 hours. So it was crazy. I mean, when you're young and gung ho, that's one thing, but when you're old and tired, that means another. So it's and again, the crew has to stay after the actors get to leave. And the crew is the ones that are there before the actors ever get to set. I mean, think about that. So it's the SAG it's an actor's contract is negotiated not just in a SAG contract, but I mean that's what you have managers and agents for, is to negotiate certain aspects of your deal. And so, and most producers nowadays don't like to go over 12 hours if they can avoid it. But and that's where the trying to think of the name of the union, but it's the union that governs production crews. Earlier this summer or earlier this year was talking about a possible strike. And shutting, striking and shutting down because of the hours. And I think they got to where, after 10 hours or whatever, then, or not to work over 10 hours, or you have to have a certain amount of, or between the time you get off
Right.
work and the time you have to be on set again, there has to be so many hours. But if that crew member has an hour drive each, going to and from, that's still you're still only giving them a little bit of time.
Yeah.
So I personally think, and I hope I see, it should be like any other job.
Mm-hmm.
You work 8 hour, you work 8 hours. If you tack lunch on, then 9 hours. You get an hour lunch, you work 8 hours. Because you're starting to go into things that are not safe.
Right.
That reminded me of when I was at basic training, and per Army reg, you have to give soldiers, I think it's 6 hours of sleep in a day per regulation for basic. And I remember we had one drill sergeant that was yelling at us one time. He's like, it says I have to give you 6 hours of sleep. It doesn't say that they have to be in a row.
Oh.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you open your eyes for a minute, and then you guys are going to close your eyes for a minute. And we're just going to do that and do that and do that. And that's going to be your 6 hours, since y'all want to act so stupid. So it was, yeah, I mean, so do you think that an incident like this, moving forward, do you think it's going to make it a little bit more difficult? Do you think there's going to be rules and regs that are going to change that'll kind of make it a little bit more difficult for like the little guy, as far as some of these like smaller production crews? Like, if there was an instance where now all of a sudden they have to hire, different inspectors, or not just an armor, but other safety protocols that get involved if they legally want to have, weapons on set, or what do you think stems from this?
Well, I mean, I think that it's going to be obviously it's going to be different for larger productions compared to your no budget independent. I mean, on a no budget independent, if you're going to have a scene with a gun, and I've been in plenty of those, you're using you're using somebody's real gun.
Mm-hmm.
Not a prop gun or anything else. It's somebody's real gun. And that's when you have to really be diligent, because there is no armorer there. There is no one that's in charge of the weapon. I mean, you have to be in charge of the weapon. So, and that can be very, very dangerous. So I think The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, he's made a pledge that on all of his production companies' future productions, they're going to use rubber guns, and then, do what they need to do in CGI to make it look real, which is possible. I mean, I don't know what kind of additional monies that will add to the budgets. I mean, it's easy enough to CGI in a muzzle flash and the sound of the weapon going off and stuff like that, and you can even make it to where when the gun's firing, that you see it move, and eject the spent round. But that's a frame for frame type of thing. What happens if it's if it's an automatic weapon, and I think there's a lot of things that are unanswered yet, and so it's just going to be one of those trying to figure it out before anyone else gets killed making a movie.
So is that more or less? And I'm sure it probably is, but is it more or less on the director and the producers as to, you said that Dwayne Johnson wants his production company, okay, we're going to do this with the rubber gun, but I mean, is there some kind of some of these directors that you've worked with, they really want the real authentic feeling, and so we're going to go with a real and authentic gun. And I know that Sean has said, and we've talked about this in the past, that it's more of is it more of a move to, they want it to look authentic and so they want the real stuff going, or is it where's where do you see the balance at there?
Well, the problem is that if you have a shot to where you can see, especially if it's in a Western, it's a 6-shooter. It's easier if it's like a 9mm or something like that. So, but if you have a 6-shooter, depending on how you frame it, and if it's close enough, you can see whether there's rounds in it. So, and obviously, they could probably CGI those in, but it's going to be a lot easier if there's actually, dummy cartridges in that.
Right.
So, the question becomes, can you make it, can you angle it to where, you're not pointing it directly at somebody at any given time, even on camera, but giving the illusion that you are pointing. So I think it's going to come down to some creative solutions that, cinematographers and directors are going to have to figure a way to make happen. It's what they've had to do since the inception of film.
Right.
To figure out how to make things appear real in a fake situation. So, using rubber guns, I think, is a good thing. I was a background in a film called Homeland Security with Scott Glenn years and years and years and years ago. And so I got to be a Iraqi Northern freedom fighter. So I got to run down a hill in the middle of the damn night in Santa Clarita Mountains with a rubber AK-47. All right, behind soldiers with M16s and all that good stuff. And the interesting thing is that they had real M16s, but they were also former military.
Mm.
So they're the ones that got the real guns. The actors got the rubber guns. So I'd run down the hill and pretend like I was shooting something off, and I felt completely silly. But it might be. I mean, I don't know the solution to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's going to have to be. It's going to take a while to figure out
Right.
by smarter people than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's why you're the actor. So
Exactly.
So let me ask you this before we kind of close things up this evening. With places like Oklahoma City and Albuquerque and other places that aren't necessarily Hollywood, that aren't California, we saw the boom that was Atlanta. That'll probably stay that way for a while. But for uh, for individuals like Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio to post up shop and work for months in towns like Oklahoma City, where these states that are starting to open up tax laws and give the film industry cash to come through, are there any directors particularly that you like kind of have like a dream director to work with, like if they ever did come to a place like whether it be Kansas City or Oklahoma City that you'd like to work with one day?
Oh yeah, I mean, Denzel Washington's one of them. I mean, I would, I would do a movie for free
Yeah.
just to give me one line. I don't care. I mean, just to be in something with his to be able to be on set and watch him work
Mm-hmm.
and how he does and how he approaches things and stuff like that. I mean, it'd be like a master class. So I mean, so Denzel Washington, oh goodness, Scorsese.
Mm.
Well, that was
I would love to work with Spielberg. I'd love to work with Spielberg
well.
one of these days. I was so disappointed because the remake of West Side Story, or the reimagining of West Side Story.
Reimagining.
Yeah, I was in West Side Story in 2001 at the Crown Uptown Dinner Theater here in Wichita. I had to play one of the sharks. I was so disappointed that now I was too damn old to pass as a teenager anymore. So it's like, damn it, why now? But
So
I'm sure I'll get over it. But I mean, I would love to work with I would love to work with that caliber of visionary and talent.
Mm.
so I've got to ask you though. So if I don't ask this, then it would be a crime because I always want to know. If you can answer this in kind of four things to this. So the first thing is who's your favorite actor, your favorite director, and your favorite film, and then who. So I gotta know though.
I'm probably going to disappoint you because I don't have a favorite actor.
Okay, oh, no disappointment here.
I don't have a favorite film. I mean, I I like actors who are still in movement but can still speak volumes. That's one of the reasons I like Denzel Washington, especially as an actor. I mean, if you watch him in The Equalizer,
yeah,
like it's a master class in being still. Because as actors, we're always thinking, I need to be doing something, when you really don't need to be doing anything if you are doing something internal. So, and which is very hard to do. And so, and directors, and I'll tell you, I'll tell you this. I do have probably, if I had to pick a favorite director, it'd be Clint Eastwood.
Really nice.
Really, I would, I would, I would. I mean, I would love to work with him too. I mean, I don't. He's 91 now, so I mean, the likelihood of that happening is
Right.
is slim. But he's one of my favorite actors. I guess maybe I do have a favorite. Clint Eastwood's probably one of my favorite actors.
When I saw him in probably my favorite movie that he did was Gran Torino, and just his, I mean, it was a serious film, but I'm in the theater and I'm almost laughing out loud because he portrayed every old grizzled veteran that I'd ever met, and then a cross between my grandfather and my father. And I mean, when you watch that guy work, it's just to me, he's like you said about Denzel. Denzel's one of mine too, but man, just to see that guy, just to carry that out. I still have to see Cry Macho. I want to see Cry Macho. Everybody said it was an excellent. Yeah.
I want to see Cry Macho. I do. I want to see that. But Gran Torino, yeah, that was that one and Unforgiven.
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes.
Two of my favorites. I mean, I kind of have to get it with my wife, but I don't. I mean, she knows I'm not kidding. I'm gonna probably turn into that grumpy old get off my lawn guy. About another 30 years. So, but hey, if I can carry it off in 1/10 of the style that Eastwood carried it off, I'll be happy.
That's great.
Oh, you'll be gold. Yeah, no, I love Clint Eastwood. He definitely is, like, for me, when I go back and watch older films, he's one that I like, and I actually like his son a ton as well.
Yes.
I think Scott does a great job in everything that he's in. So, but yeah, I mean, Clint is one of those guys that really, can knock it out of the park with acting, but then is just as good, if not better, in some cases with his directing. I mean, so it's just like, man, yeah, that was.
He's masterful. I mean, he's like that's the similarity between him and. I mean, you can't have any more polar opposites than Denzel Washington in character and in acting technique and style and all that stuff. But both of them are so masterful in what they do that you just sit there and try to absorb everything that they're given.
That's awesome.
Sure. So before we go here, Delno, I just want to ask, is there any platforms, that our viewers and listeners can kind of go to, any places, any movies particularly that you know of where they can go check them out, or any movies that you'd recommend that you're in that people can go out and rent and find online, or anything like that?
Well, I mean, I've got several on Amazon Prime and iTunes and Tubi and all that good stuff. Pearl 2, Unsurety, by all of those are by Brave Films here in Wichita. They're really kind of upping and changing the game here locally.
Awesome.
I think they've got a comedy coming that I'm not in, but they got a comedy coming in out early next year. So it's they do a lot of urban style stories. So which is always fun and interesting to do after you do westerns and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I mean, if you just go to IMDb or just go to Amazon and punch my name in or some of those
And I'm actually showing you can't see this on your end, but I'm actually showing the viewers right now. So here's Delno's page right here. You can see him. If you scroll down on his page here, you can see all of the stuff that he has here. Again, you talked about, so it looks like candles. You said the Battle of Bushy Run there. We see that. And again, and there's Pearl and Pearl 2. So obviously, some great stuff to guys that you can go and you can check out there of Delno.
And Death Alley is the one that my son and I are in. So that's good.
Awesome.
That's a good Western.
Awesome.
I apologize to our viewers. My dog is just throwing up off screen here. I'm so sorry. I'm just watching him puke.
Oh, that's the joys of having animals and kids, man.
Right.
Yeah. He was like sitting there staring at me the whole time. He gets down and I'm like, what do you do? And then I'm pretty sure that's the diaper that he ate.
Yeah. And we'll leave you with that one tonight too.
The double whammy. Well, Delno, it has been awesome to catch up, and it's also been great to get your insight on things. I can't wait for the day that we get to work again. Inevitably, we will definitely be sure to link your Instagram, your handles, definitely to get the word out. And we will for sure throughout the week make sure we post your IMDb and have people check out your stuff. I'll be sure to be streaming the Haunted Mansion on Disney.
Get that residual. Get those
residuals in. For our listeners, thank you all again so much for checking us out. Again, Andy and I, we check our viewer count each and every week, and it continues to grow. A couple of our episodes have, several hundred unique listeners that come on and actually listen to it. And we get lots of different plays, and it's growing in each and every month that we continue to go back and look. So thank you all for your support. Again, make sure you like, share, comment whenever we have our guests on live. Again, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Google Podcasts, anywhere that you guys listen to podcasts, we're available. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, the Voice of Reason podcast. Andy, is there anything you'd like to add before we sign off today?
Dostoevsky to all of our Russian friends who are listening.
Yeah. Well, Delno, thanks again so
Thank
much.
You, Delno. Thank you.
We would love to have you on again. I'll reach out and would love whenever you've got a free evening available. We'll take some time from you. So thank you again for everything.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate it. Anytime, guys. This was fun.
All right.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank